Thank you. Representative Wittman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank our witnesses for joining us. Mr. Chrétien, I wanted to get your perspective. The depth and breadth of what China is doing around the world many times is facilitated by American companies. In fact, many times they get co-opted or they feel like they have to be compelled by the CCP because of the 1.4 billion people in China. Would you agree that those technology companies have been co-opted and that they are actually enabling, in many ways, the key enforcers of the Chinese Communist Party's surveillance state? And if you do agree with that, what should we do to hold these companies accountable or to make sure there's consequences for them enabling the CCP?
Yeah, absolutely. At the very least, we see that they're, at this point, not cross-pressured. They're feeling CCP pressure to remove the kinds of internet freedom apps that OTF funds to help develop, and basically taking the tools out of Chinese citizens' hands that would allow them to get around censorship and surveillance. And it's a huge problem. And beyond that, we haven't found good ways to compel them to help better support the development of internet freedom technologies or the funding of those technologies. Because at the end of the day, a lot of the tools that those are built on point back to some big American companies who at this point are profiting from them. And in terms of what we should be doing, I think Dr. Cooper has some fabulous recommendations for ensuring that at the very least disclosure happens when these kind of companies aid and abet censorship and surveillance efforts in the CCP. But in a better world, they wouldn't be engaged in those behaviors at all.
Very good. Thank you. Dr. Cooper, let me go to you, and I want to follow up on Ranking Member Krishnamurthy's assertion about the exportation of this technology. We know that China, the Chinese Communist Party, is one of the most advanced states as far as how they prosecute advanced technologies for surveillance and really repression of their own people. They look to export that because they don't believe in the rule of law. They like to enable other governments that operate the same way that they do. But let me ask this. Give me a sense of your priority where we should look at. That is the most immediate threat of places where this technology is being exported. And then what should we do to respond to this exportation? We talked a little bit about there. Mr. Chrétien talked a little bit about it. But I want to know what's the most immediate threat. And then what can we do as a nation, policy-wise and as a Congress, to most immediately impact that?
Well, thanks, Representative Wittman. I think this is absolutely crucial. And I would say you could think of sort of a tiered approach to different countries that adopt Chinese surveillance and censorship technology. There's a hard core of highly autocratic countries, your Venezuelas, your Cubas. Frankly, I don't think we've got a lot of leverage in most of those countries. We can use sanctions to try and limit their ability to gain access to Chinese systems, but at the end of the day, they're probably going to be able to circumvent those. You've then got an outer layer, which is countries that are maybe leaning in an autocratic direction or have some leaders who are highly corrupt who would prefer to have the censorship technology. I think in those places we can actually be quite effective when we're focused on intervening with those countries early on in the process. I'd say there's also a third layer, which includes some close democratic allies of the United States. You know, China's safe cities approach is something that's gotten traction in France. So I would start there at the outer layer and work our way in over time. I think if we can explain and make transparent what the Communist Party has done with these tools, that a lot of people in those countries will think that those tools shouldn't be able to be used either by their governments or by companies in their countries.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Cooper. Mr. Zhao, I want to ask, we see as this digital authoritarianism is expanded around the world, that I think there's some opportunities for us to point out where the weaknesses are in those systems. And the only way that happens is through the people in those countries, or as we also heard examples of people within China that are speaking out and pushing back against this. How can the United States either enable those folks that are speaking out or undermine the use of these digital tools of authoritarianism?
There are several aspects to answer this question. But let me actually start from the voices of Chinese people. Even under the repression, that they use coded language, use satires, but also there are. Let me just give you an example. That what kind of the voices on Chinese internet and being censored and reappeared outside of China, such as China Geotimes and my website. Okay. Well, let's start from this. Even back to your first question, why Great Firewall is so important for Chinese Communist Party, right? Because as a autocratic system, it has the common feature, which is few rules many, but in the name of many. They cannot tell Chinese people that the truth. They said, oh, we do this for you, for Chinese people, right? Well, think about this. In the dynasties, the next legitimacy of the emperor is because of the bloodline, right? But today's dynasty cannot do that. North Korea, inherited by the blood, but it's called Democratic People's Republic of Korea, right? And China called People's Republic of China. It's not people's, it's not public. And here's the quote that online went viral in China and being thoroughly deleted. And what this post say? It says, oh, those peoples are a miracle. The people's daily, which people do not read. People's great hall, where people do not meet. People's government, where people do not rule. People's court, where people see no justice. These kind of voices are common knowledges in China, but without alternative, that they're being repressed by this digital authoritarianism and actually and also being confined in a cyberspace by the Great Firewall. Now, the effective ways to respond to this, including a technology piece. If the Chinese regime seems the Great Firewall is so critical to it, it's invested so much resources and technology to it, even to undermine that effort to getting the Chinese internet users to access more freedom of information, it requires much larger budget and resources to build up the counter technology. And I'm naming one, not just VPNs. Decentralized generative AI tools. The new AI tools that actually is another threat to the Chinese government control of the ideology and online contents. But if right now these generative AI tools are in the big US companies' hand, there's a Chinese company doing that, but they have to censor their content. Again, they are a result will not really meet the demand of the Chinese population if they are an alternative decentralized AI tool can be made.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.